let everybody know, my name is Karen. I'm from Women in Midlife. I want to be known as the perimenopause, menopause expert of Asia because I'm very, very passionate about educating women through this phase of their life and in all aspects, whether it's being a caregiver, a career person, in your health and well-being. I have here your screen, we have Rebecca Ockens. Oh, sorry, another, hang on. Which is, she is a business psychologist that has worked with multiple MNCs, and she's a leadership and performance coach. I will let her explain what she does exactly. And then we have Mae to give us a younger version and perspective rather of what, how to kind of deal with the challenges as we get older, the changes in our bodies, and of course with career. And she will also be our moderator for today. Mae, would you like to give a quick introduction before I introduce Rebecca?
Yes, I'm happy to be here. It's a very exciting topic, and it's exciting to know how I would be able to support my colleagues who are going through this phase of life. What does a career look like later on? And I'm excited to get insights from Rebecca about this, seeing as she's met loads of people across her 16 years of experience, women leaders and women climbing up the ladders of their career. So this is going to be very inspirational, and also to understand how the younger generation can play a supporting role in this. So I'll pass it on to Rebecca to introduce herself from there, and I will be here to moderate or help with any questions you might have in the group chat. You can just ping us there and I will reply to you.
Okay, it's all yours, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Karen and Mae. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and to have conversations, share strategies, and also to learn from all the women, because I think that's the power of sessions like this. We learn, we grow, we support each other. And thank you again for this opportunity. I'll just do a very short introduction onto a bit of background maybe. So as Karen already mentioned, I'm a business psychologist. I'm called organizational psychologist. What it really means, it's anything to do with human behavior at the workplace that comes under my sort of realm. I've been doing this for 16 years. First half of my career in Asia, I'm Malaysian. Second half of my career in Europe, primarily in France and Germany. And then I got back to Malaysia in 2021. And this is very important, and it holds dear to me, this topic, because part of the, let's say, the mission that I have since coming back is to really elevate and empower women in the workplace, because having the exposure of working abroad and here, and being able to compare the two, I've seen what empowering women can do for us, and I want to bring that to the women here back home. So this is so exciting for me to be able to share and exchange with you ladies as well.
Oh, really good. Okay, we talked about your experience working in Europe and Malaysia. Now, when I started Women in Midlife, I'm a pretty idealistic, so I thought everyone would, come on board, have conversations and be open about what they're suffering. So there is a huge cultural difference in my approach between the Asian community and the European. So I myself also lived in Europe, so I know the culture. I joined certain support groups, and they're very open about, if you ask a question and whatever they're going through, they're very open about it. I want that for our group here, because I feel that the support, the love that came out from all these women, example is like one person say, oh, I'm going through major depression, I'm sick, and I want to sleep all the time. And then everyone just kept pouring love to that person. I struggle with that in our community in Asia. So I wonder for you, when you had to deal with that, what was the major difference for you in the corporate environment?
Thank you, Karen, for that question. I'll start with a bit more maybe general perceptions. The first thing that was very stark for me was how strong gender stereotypes are, let's say, in Malaysia and in Asia, as compared to Europe. So it exists in Europe. However, I think they have come, perhaps they've started a bit earlier, so they've come a longer way as compared to us. So the gender stereotypes are not as strong
Yeah.
as in women. There's more credit to competence, meritocracy. There is this strong emphasis that everyone is measured on according to the same ruler.
Right.
And what is even more amazing, especially in Europe, is the number of initiatives to support women at the workplace. And it's not the same as in giving handouts. When we say support women as the workplace, it's what we mean is really enabling women to stand up, to speak up, rewarding behaviors that help women to stand out. And here, for example, in Asia, I feel we punish behaviors that allow women to stand out, and this starts from a very young age. I personally do not have kids, but we have our goddaughter who is very close to us and who comes and spends a lot of time with us. And she's 6, and she's a very strong girl. You know, she speaks up, she's courageous, she's able to ask for what she wants. And I've heard her being described by people who observe her as, oh wow, she's a bit bossy, isn't she? And I said, no, she's not. She's not bossy. She knows what she wants. She's able to ask for it, and she's very comfortable taking charge in a group,
Right.
which is a great.
Yeah.
So I think even the narrative, the words we use, even as we describe children, already show the implicit biases that we hold so close that we're not even able to see that we have these biases.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. But I feel that women are not exactly supporting women. Let's put the men perspective aside. But in this case, sometimes even women, they are really not supporting their fellow women. And that's something that so in the environment or corporate environment, what are some of the strategies you think that women can take to kind of take away the pressure to handle work stress and handling perimenopause and menopause at the same time? Because one is a health issue, and then it does affect work, because I've gone through it, and it's very real.
Absolutely. And why is this so important? And Karen, what you're doing is amazing, because women above 50 are the fastest growing age group in organizations. So we need to pay attention to this group. It is getting larger and larger, and it's only going to get larger because right from bachelor's to master's to even PhD, there are more women than men right now. There are more women. Yeah, we're graduating more. We're finishing our studies. So naturally, we will come into the workplace, and we will all lead into an age group where we're above 50 and have to go through perimenopause and menopause. So absolutely important. And what's interesting is there was a study done on women at the workplace and how menopause impacts them. And more than half of them say one of the biggest things is they lose focus. They have less patience with their colleagues, with their clients even. They say it impacts their energy levels, and it impacts their self-esteem. So these are things which are impacting women. And as you mentioned, the first thing that we would need in such an environment is support rather than labeling or shaming, right? And it starts way before menopause. It starts when women are simply labeled as, oh, PMS syndrome, right? She must be going through a PMS. And what does that mean? So imagine if a woman knows that she's already being labeled for that, And now for her to say, I'm going through menopause or perimenopause, and this is all the things that I'm going through, she's so afraid that if she expresses this, she's only going to be labeled even further.
Mm.
And that, I think, is a bit of a struggle that women probably have. And this is an assumption, but I'm assuming that other women probably are hesitant to support because they are afraid they may also be labeled in a similar fashion. It's a typical, in psychology, we call it the bystander effect, where nobody wants to step in because they're afraid of being associated with it. And I think this is where the problem is. We attach a lot of shame, a lot of guilt to someone expressing vulnerability
Yeah.
instead of the
Self-support.
courage. Exactly. And
So we do in the corporate.
absolutely. So one of the things that I would think in terms of strategies, I mean, forget, like you said, forget men, forget organizations, because we can't wait for them to keep up. I believe it starts from us because that's something it's in our full control, right? And what we were talking about a bit earlier is, firstly, we are living in a beauty and youth obsessed culture.
Yep.
It has never been to this point where if you just go on social media and you look at the number of filters that exist to help people look younger and more beautiful, it shows how our self-esteem is being impacted, and the absolute heaviness and importance we give to youth and beauty. So
Agree.
this is, I think it's like when we have reached perimenopause or menopause, what it could translate to is this big red neon sign saying, I am no longer in my youth, I am no longer beautiful, right? And can you imagine what that does to a person in a culture where we're so obsessed over it? So the language that we use, I think, is not helping us. And it's quite interesting because and I did a little bit of research, and I was so fascinated to find out that in the Asian context, in traditional Chinese and traditional Indian medicinal,
Ayurvedic?
Ayurvedic, absolutely, and also in TCM, menopause is seen as a extension and evolvement of womanhood. It's not seen as the end of womanhood, neither is it seen as the end of youth or life. Exactly. In fact, it's seen in the Chinese medicine culture, it's called second spring. And I think it's so beautiful.
And bloom and joy.
Right. What do you think when you hear the word spring? What comes to mind? Right.
Like a whole beginnings and a whole new phase, a sign of change, a
Correct.
fresh start, the smell of spring.
It is absolutely.
Exactly. It's beautiful, right? It's colorful. It's waking up. It's those little plants coming out again, the birds singing, the squirrels coming out. It is so empowering, and I love how the Chinese have used this term second spring. And I think that's something that we need to take into account. And they translate it as not the end of the life force, but the preservation of the chi or the shen. Or in Ayurveda, it's called Agni or prana. It's the preservation of that. And they welcome at this point women into the age of wisdom, where you have arrived at a point where you have maturity and wisdom. And as you rightly pointed out, Karen, the ability to now actually look inside and focus on yourself. And I think just shifting our mind from menopause being this end of youth and vitality and beauty into I am arriving at a different point in my life which needs to be celebrated, which needs to be embraced. I'm a woman who is now evolving into becoming more wise, more mature. I think that itself, just that internal narrative, will help us to feel more empowered.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that is absolutely true. But what can women do besides that mind shift? Because there is definitely, as we can't deny, there is a cultural problem here. So what can women take action to kind of make this a priority and make them a priority? Because most women at this stage have already given a lot to family, to work, and they have along the way forgotten about themselves. How can they find themselves now?
It's a good question. And you're right. I think one, culture is a big part of it, because in our culture, typically when I say our, I mean the Asian culture, a woman is celebrated for her ability to be self-sacrificial. People
Yeah.
speak so highly of a woman that ignores her needs.
Yeah.
And and it's not like they don't see, they see that this woman is struggling, she's down, she's aged, she's tired, and they completely overlook that, and they celebrate and recognize her for her being so self-sacrificial and being there for others. I think that would be the first thing that we need to address and need to shift.
Yeah.
So as women, what we need to do is we need to stop glamorizing and glorifying doing things for others and punishing women who do things for themselves.
Mm.
So as mothers, as even children, I encourage my mother to do things for herself. I said, look, this is, you've done your part. Now it's time for you. Go enjoy your time. And men play a big role, partners play a big role in telling women to have time for themselves and allowing women to have that. So it's us women, firstly, moving away from being self-sacrificial to really empowering a mindset that if we were to give time for ourselves, we're not bad people, because that's what's ingrained in us.
True.
And it's strong. It's so strong that we don't even realize it. It's unconscious.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the key things.
All right. I want to interject here is that what you said about how it's so ingrained in us, right? And I realized one thing, and I hope to share with everyone here today, is that when you start taking care of yourself, it also means you start to respect yourself. You start to value yourself. And I found that shift to be very poignant, because when I started to take care of myself, my spouse, my children, or the people closest to me start to realize my value, because obviously I didn't value myself. And therefore they don't see to value me. But when I started shifting and I said, hey, I'm not cooking tonight because I'm really tired. And my husband just said, sure, I'll cook. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not being selfish. It's just saying I value myself. So, and my projection to the outside world is I'm of value. So those who are listening today, it's not, we're not asking you to be this, I don't care about everyone around me kind of thing, but start valuing yourself and know that you contribute to your family, to your society, to your company. And that is where you start to show to other people that, oh, she knows what to do. She is of great value to whatever scenario it may be.
That's so beautiful and so true. And absolutely, thank you so much, Karen, for sharing that, because there's a saying that people treat us the way we allow them to treat us.
Yes.
I think that's the story that you shared is an absolute reflection of that. When we show so little respect to our bodies, I think as if those of us who are mothers, what are we teaching our children as well, right? Are we being good role models in how to take care of ourselves? If we're only giving and not putting anything, not having any energy left for ourselves. So absolutely, that definitely that shift needs to start. And it could be small things in terms of actions. It could be having 5 minutes a day in the morning for yourself before anyone else wakes up. And it could be having 10 minutes in the evening for yourself for a self-care activity. It doesn't need to be big, grand gestures. It starts small. It could be making time for yourself to put on nice makeup in the morning, for example, or to put on something really nice rather than rushing through your day. It could be having a good breakfast. So I think
to broach another thing about how in the corporate environment, normally women over 45, 50s, they're really they're at the top or near the top of the corporate ladder. And generally in society, when women kind of speak their mind, as you said, or get a little temper, it's looked upon as, oh, she's being a bitch, or she's being so difficult, that kind of thing. Why is it that when a man does it, oh, he's a good leader, he's strong, but when a woman does it, she's this horrible person? So maybe you can enlighten us a little bit on that.
absolutely. It comes to gender stereotypes and bias, and I'm going to share this interesting study which I read in Cheryl Sandberg's book Lean In. She was from
Yeah.
She shared this study which is very interesting. So they took a very successful female entrepreneur, Heidi Rosen, I think her name, and they anonymized her name and they spoke about her successes, how well she's doing, and this was given to two groups of people. So in one group she was called Heidi, in the other group she was called Howard.
Okay.
Everything else is the same. And when they then asked questions in terms of leadership competence, both were rated equally. In terms of leadership confidence and capability, both were rated equally. But when it came to likability, would you work for this person? Do you think she's liked within the team? Howard was described as someone that people would like to work for. Heidi was described as pushy, as not a team player, as aggressive, and therefore people would not like and would want to work for her. And this is a significant study to illustrate what we go through at the workplace. As you said, right? A woman is stubborn, a man is determined. A woman is bitchy, a man wants, right? A woman is pushy, a man is ambitious. So it's we same behavior and we give such different attributes to it. And why is this? It's because of gender stereotyping. So it's almost like if as a woman you want to be liked, you can't be a successful leader. And if you are a successful leader, you can't be liked. And I think that's where we struggle because innately as we want to be liked. But,
I said we want so badly to be accepted. That's why.
Exactly. And for a very good reason. And evolutionary psychology tells us that we are all descendants of people that belonged in groups because so thousands of years ago, our ancestors would not have been able to survive if they did not have a social group to belong to. It was a matter of survival. They would just simply die. And so we all became descendants of people who enjoy being as part of a group, as being liked. And therefore, at the workplace, a woman faces a very strong dilemma. Do you want to be liked or do you want to be a leader? And that dilemma is not faced by a man. So that's a little bit about, they call it the likability paradox for female leaders. And that's what this topic is about, I think. Do you want to be liked or do you want to be a leader?
To ask Rebecca, like on that side of things. So as someone who is, I go through my periods on a monthly basis and things shift for me, right, during the times that I'm on my period. So when I think about my career, and I'm going to put so much energy into my career, so when I get to that point where I'm going to go through perimenopause, how do I plan my goals and how do I plan my leadership brand around the changes that my body is obviously facing physically?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Thank you, Mae. Well, it's not a simple answer because from what I understand, every woman's symptoms are different physically. So one of the things that you could possibly do is to look at the common themes and recognize that one, change will happen. There will be change. Your body will change, your capacity to process emotions might be impacted, your capacity to make decisions might be impacted as you go through these stages. And what I would strongly suggest is get to know yourself, get to know which parts of the month are impacting you in different ways. So is it a week before your period? Is it a week after? Getting to know these different parts of your cycle and how you behave. And I think there are even a couple of apps to help you now with this.
Yeah.
It will help you to determine certain trends. And once you're able to have these trends, then you can plan in a way to say, okay, I probably should not make big decisions during this week. I probably want to perhaps work on independent solo projects this week because I will be feeling less social. Maybe in week 2, which is my most social week, I probably want to do more things with the team. These are some of the ways that you could plan your schedule to align a little bit with how you're feeling during your cycle. And I encourage clients to do this. Some of my coaching clients, for example, who are very in touch with their moods, their behaviors, their expressions, their level of patience, depending on the cycle of the month. And they become more and more aware of it. And some of them, if they have supportive managers, and I must say, quite a few of them have actually male managers and have been able to express this to their male managers who have been in return very supportive to say, this is what I'm going through. And this is a period in my cycle where I don't think I'm comfortable making these decisions. And they've been very supportive. So one, it's the comfort of us expressing it. And sorry, one is the realization and awareness, and 2 is the comfort of us expressing it.
Thank you for that. And I think like if I were to support, let's say, my colleagues who are older than me, because as you mentioned earlier, right, there's like this stigma, there's this way that they perceive what they're going through. They might not want to share it with me. So in order to support them, do you think that I could do things in a sense of when I draw that boundary to say, hey, I'm on my period and I'm not feeling too good, so I kind of want some space. Do you think that that would be able to encourage them indirectly to also be open to say that, yeah, I'm also in a low mood right now. Actually, I'm going through perimenopause or menopause, and I too need to step back a little bit. Do you think that that would be one way to sort of encourage them to be more open towards me without asking them like, hey, are you moody today? Why your face like that?
Absolutely, right? It starts with you, and it's when we express vulnerability, others are more open to sharing their vulnerability with us. So, for example, one of the things that I teach clients to do, and this is not just those who are going through mood swings, but just anyone who wants to communicate how they're feeling during the day. Because let's face it, and we need to accept it, we can't be happy 100% of the time. We can't be 100% focused 100% of the time. So sometimes what I have used with clients, and they tell me it works, is they have a traffic light color that is in the form of a little table calendar, and they put it on their desk, and they've already communicated what these three colors mean. So if it's green, it means I'm in a great mood, I'm super happy, super social, really open to conversations or meetings or collaborations or innovative sessions. Yellow is I'm feeling not so great. If it's something absolutely important, of course I'll be happy to support, but it's not my best day. And then red is pretty much I'm not feeling so great today. And I probably would like to be left a bit alone.
That's a nice way
And
to communicate without saying it, right? Like without having to say it, using colors to indicate. And I think that like something that was trending on social media is there was like these plushy toys that look like octopuses, and they were making jokes about it, like, oh, if you're unhappy, then you put the plushie on like this sad face, and then if you're in a happy mood, you put the plushie on your desk with like a happy face. So like that's a good way to communicate. Like I don't want to talk about it, like just read the signs.
actually, no, smiley faces is the other one. I know a client of mine who did that. He did smiley faces. So he
Okay.
had smiley faces, and it becomes very powerful if, as a leader, you use it.
Hmm.
And then, of course, everybody in your team can use it. So this is you communicating how you're feeling without necessarily having to go into it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let's say the disadvantage of it is that if we want to bring awareness to menopause, then of course part of it is having conversations around it. So while this might work, perhaps before that, the first step might be actually expressing this to your female colleagues.
Yeah.
And saying,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going through, and this is what I would like to propose. And then you probably hear other people open up as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm going to do that. I know that I'm in a different phase of my life right now, but if I could start that conversation, because I do want to take ownership to say, I think the younger generation, we're a little bit more ballsy, right? We're okay to say things a little more. And once we open up that door, I think that we'd be able to encourage our older colleagues to do the same thing. And in the beginning of this call, I know that we put men aside, right? We've put men aside in this conversation. But it just got me thinking that like when we talk about like gynecologists, a lot of like females always say, "Oh, I prefer a male gynecologist because they're able to like kind of sympathize with me more because they know that, you know, like this is painful." They'll be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you know, do you want a glass of water?" Whereas with a woman, they'll be like, "Oh, I went through it. Like, why are you fussing so much?" But then when you've been describing things in the workplace, it doesn't seem to be that same um yeah, it's not that same vibe, is it? It's different. Like male leaders are not as empathetic towards women because they're like, okay, well, that's another one down. I guess I'll just stay in the leadership role. So how do you sort of like navigate that?
Mm.
Make your male counterparts also understand and not just brush us off.
There are a couple of things at play here. One is males have, for the longest time, been celebrated for their masculinity. Right. So I don't know how this came about, but perhaps because they were recognized and they were mostly in senior leadership positions, they were able to craft identity statements that supported how they behave, which is masculine. And indirectly or directly, all the feminine traits were seen as weaker than the masculine traits. And firstly, understanding this might be helpful because men are quite comfortable in enjoying this privilege.
Yeah.
right? It's a privilege, and we all know we don't like when things are taken away from us.
Mm.
It makes us feel a bit shaken, a bit, it brings out our insecurities. So it's probably ensuring that a man is recognized for who he is and for his masculinity, and for recognizing women for who they are and their femininity. Because right now, what happens is same behavior celebrated in a male, punished in a female.
Yeah.
And we need to shift that narrative to, for example, start talking about how emotional intelligence is such an important leadership skill.
Yeah.
So if you call us emotional beings, that's great. Because we actually are able to be in touch with our emotions and to connect with others emotionally, which is a key for successful leadership. It's been proven, it's been researched.
Mm. Mm.
Is to own who we are and to own our feminine traits as well, rather than to be ashamed of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a powerful message. That's a good transition. And that's something that we can support.
Exactly. We don't need to judge the masculine side of things, but we can start celebrating our feminine traits, who we are as women, what we bring to the table. And yes, we have the ability to be determined, to be assertive, to be ambitious, to be competitive, and we remain nice people at heart, which does not mean that we're not nice. So that shift, nice people can be nice women can be successful leaders, that needs to shift.
Mm. Mm.
We need to embrace that. We need to understand and embrace that great leaders are also nice. Great female
Yeah.
leaders. And on
Yeah.
the other side, when it comes to the likability paradox, is as women, we need to let go of the strong need for approval and to be liked.
Yeah.
It's
And what are
it's a,
we how do we shift that? How do we let go of it? Is it what are some techniques that we can do to let go of that?
so it's a process, it's a journey because it's quite embedded. First thing would be, again, changing the inner narrative, of course. Secondly, would be asking ourselves, would we judge people that we care about in the same way? And thirdly, would be to ask ourselves, as leaders, do we want to be liked or do we want to be respected for the decisions we make, for the direction we bring others to? So having that clarity of our role as leaders, and knowing that our true north is that, and embracing that we will be respected for being able to bring that, might help us to be less focused on the need to be liked.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. I think that that's like super powerful, and perhaps like to end all of this like in a nice way. As an organizational psychologist, and you face women on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis. Do you think that this is something that we'd be able to achieve in the workplace in the near future, or do you think we still have kind of a long way to go in terms of this shift?
In Malaysia, or
Okay, in Asia and then in Europe, maybe you can give answers for both sides.
I think we are at the beginning of our journey in Asia.
Okay.
So there is a lot of awareness. It's at the start. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But I do see, and it's really thanks to your generation, May. I think your generation is speaking up, is pushing boundaries, is not afraid to express how they feel, to challenge the status quo, is willing to express non-consensus opinions. Probably a generation that is less impacted by the gender stereotypes, a generation that is more empowered, a generation that is wanting to express confidence. And I believe that this is the generation that will really be the movers and the shakers when it comes to issues like this. People in my generation, we're probably still fighting a lot of biases, a lot of stereotypes, a lot of identity statements that were ingrained in us. And that's our battle to overcome those. I think we start to recognize that we have these and we're starting to overcome these. And I think women in your generation are helping us and supporting us. And I do believe that we're at the start of it. So it's a long journey. It will be helped by your generation. You'll be the catalyst, I believe, for this change. And it's cool, right? And in Europe, I do believe personally that it's further into the journey. My own experiences tell me this. So professionally, I definitely am respected for my credibility and my confidence more openly in Europe. So clients, a lot of my clients are male in their 50s or 60s. And because of the nature of the work that I do, I often have to give them feedback. I often have to point out blind spots, and they show openness, they show professional respect. We respect each other as peers, regardless of age difference or gender differences. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist in Malaysia. I am respected by a lot of my clients in Malaysia, but I definitely sometimes have a bit of an uphill hurdle because of the face value.
Yeah.
So I do think we're getting there, but we have a bit of a journey to embark on.
Okay, well, I guess as long as we acknowledge it and we're willing to take those steps on that journey, then we'll get there eventually.
Just one thing, because we were talking about the topic is menopause, and the one statement that really resonated with me, and I believe will be impactful for today's topic, is by our very and one of my favorite actresses, Michelle Yeoh. Just a couple of months ago, she won her first Oscar, and at the end of her speech, she said this. She said, "Ladies, don't ever let anyone tell you you are past your prime." And for a 61-year-old, she's beautiful, she's confident, she is feminine. And I think that's the mindset that we should embody, regardless of our age. And that's something that I resonated with. And I believe when I do hit menopause, I will always think of what Michelle Yeoh said. No one will tell me